Yeah, Greg Condon with Grassroots Agronomy from Southern New South Wales, working with WeedSmart and the AHRI team on extending integrated weed management messages for East and Southern Australia. So the main topic was around harvest weed seed control. So historically, for people that think that would be narrow windrow burning, but we've now got another suite of options to sort of complement other forms of harvest weed seed control. Obviously the Harrington seed destructor and the mill technology with seed terminators, but also chaff lining and chaff decks are emerging as alternatives to narrow windrow burning to collect the weed seeds and then put them somewhere where we can potentially leave them to rot or even graze them with sheep. So yeah, we're sort of moving on from narrow windrow burning, and I guess my message today was about how different farming systems can use the range of harvest weed seed control options. So effectively the chaff lining was developed in the Esperance area of WA, as was the chaff decks. So the chaff decks were actually developed first, so they involved the collection of the weed seeds in the chaff fraction. So separating the straw, spreading the straw through a chopper, and then pulling the weed seeds off the sieves with the chaff and dropping it into rows. So with the chaff decks, they put it on the 3 metre tramline tracks, whereas with the chaff line, they just put it in a single row behind the header. So I guess compared to narrow windrow burning or chaff carts or seed destruction, you're actually leaving it to rot. So the weed seeds are left to rot. There's not a lot of good data on it, but Michael Walsh and John Broster and their teams instigated some trials locally this year to start looking at the rotting of the weed seeds under different crop types. So we can't categorically tell growers what level of rotting we're going to achieve, but we've seen growers doing the practice for 3 or 4 years now, and yeah, quite pleasing, probably in the sense that we're seeing the weeds not blow out across the paddock, but we're also got them in a zone where we can manage them. So Rick Llewellyn did a nationwide study in 2013 with 600 growers. So they found that overall across the country about 43% of growers were using some form of harvest weed seed control. That project will have to get updated in time, but another survey from Twitter with WeedSmart last harvest sort of found that the numbers was a biased samples, around 270 growers, but they were all using, I guess there was up to 70% adoption of harvest weed seed control with chaff lining, chaff decks, narrow windrow burning, and chaff carts. So in WA the windrow burning and the chaff carts dominated, whereas in East and areas it was probably more so the chaff lining. So just differences in tactics depending on location and farming systems. So when we come to our higher rainfall areas in the eastern states, it is more challenging. So in terms of achieving that ability to collect the weed seeds with bulky crops and tall crops, so we're looking at what crop types or sequences in the rotation where canola, for example, might be a better collection point than what cereals are. So it's just trying to modify that form of harvest weed seed control to suit your location and your farming system. I guess one of the exciting trends we've seen emerge out of the chaff line, chaff decks is for mixed farmers. So it was an observation that growers have made where the sheep are eating the chaff from the rows. So if ryegrass seed passes through a sheep, generally up to 96% is destroyed in terms of viability. So, but we're observing really good weight gains of sheep on these chaff lines. So, and they're reducing the amount of bulk in the row for subsequent rotting the year after. So, yeah, the rotting's not so good where cattle go in and make a bit of a mess, but with sheep, it's really complementary for mixed farmers. So, so planning what harvest weed seed tactic you might use, you'd probably steer away from the mill technology if you're a mixed farmer. With the ability to capture some of that cracked grain or weed seeds in the chaff line or chaff decks, whereas if you're a continuous cropper or an intensive cropper, the mill technology with the seed terminator or the IHSD is a much better fit. You're sort of destroying all those weed seeds and leaving that ground cover and those nutrients there in place. So Michael Walsh from Sydney Uni and John Broster have teamed up. So John's from CSU at Wagga, so they've got trials this year looking at the rotting of different weed seeds under a range of crop types, so wheat, barley, canola, lupins and lentils, just to see the fate of the weeds over a period of time, so we can quantify what weeds are rotting down over a 1, 2 or 3 year period. So it's not fully quantified yet, but yeah, they're quite encouraged by the experiences from the Esperance region in WA where they've been doing it for quite a long time.